I'm Linda Mariano. I'm the managing director of Redwood Media Group and Artexpo New York. And welcome to the last seminar of Artexpo New York 2018. And I saved this one for last, actually. I'm the one that organizes the programming. And this is one of my favorite kinds of seminars to do. We call it an art talk. We sit a panel of artists and chat with them about their career, how they started, what they're doing today, and where they see their future going. And, you know, we started these, I'm going to say, about 3 years ago, and it was almost by accident. One of our speakers became ill and unfortunately wasn't able to come, and so I was like, what am I going to do? Well, I'll just bring a panel of artists together and we'll have a talk. And people loved it. And I think that it's, you know, and I know something about each one of these artists, but I always learn something more. And in the conversation, whether it's about the artists or the questions that you all ask or what they say, it gives an insight. It gives information that I didn't have, that we didn't have before. So let's get started. I want to introduce you all the way over on your left to Samir Samoun. The part, of course, that we love about Samir, besides him and his artwork, is he started his career at Artexpo New York more than 20 years ago. It was the platform that he launched his career on. He was very successful in that first show and has been with us for every show after that. He is a world-acclaimed artist, an incredible style, incredible use of color and technique. In the middle, please meet Christina Cruchy, also an award-winning world-class artist. You can see a very different kind of art, very interpretive, and clearly a embodiment of the influences of her life and the culture around her. And Majid. Majid's work, if you haven't been to his booth, you're going to be delighted by what you learn here from him, because it's his use of different materials and the composition of them, and it's not even clear to you from these photographs truly what can happen. It's all interactive. So you move the pieces around. They're magnetic. You can expose different things in some of them, or cover it up, or move the pieces around for your own interpretation. So it's an interesting, very dynamic format that he has developed. So let's just start from the beginning. And Majid, we're going to start with you. So tell us about when you first decided that you were an artist. Did that start from a very early age? Were you a young person, or is this something that really developed later?
I think I was born in the art business because my father was a French post-impressionist painter. My godfather was a very well-known abstract painter in Paris. So I was born in that world. However, it's been kind of a growing process for me to totally own my artist identity. In the last 15 years, I've dedicated myself to art. And in the last few years, I've really focused on this new series called Recreate, which is an interactive approach to art where you can change the shapes and create your own art, an ever-changing art. And you, as the viewer, you become part of the creative process. So it breaks down this kind of rigid boundary that exists between the viewer and the artist. And as an artist, when I see somebody, a viewer, that gets involved in creating, then something in me really lights up. Because I really like art that taps into people's creativity and sense of playfulness. So.
And Christina, how about you? When did you first start creating artwork?
Well, different than you. I grew up in the jungle of Bolivia, and there was nothing to play with but nature. And when we came back as a teenager to Switzerland, I attended these art, something that the school applied for to do, and I painted these bubbles, soap bubbles, and I was totally interested in the reflection of these soap bubbles. And at one moment, I remember finishing the painting and looking at the painting and feeling a wave of gratitude and peace come over me, and realizing that this is really what is going to help me in life, and I wanted that feeling again. And I still have it, and that's why I'm an artist.
And Samir, when did you really first start creating your art?
Well, I'm 65. It's been a long time. I started at 5 years old. So, I was doing watercolor at the beginning. So at school, they will tell me this is beautiful. So I said, well, I loved that. And I did my first oil painting. I was 13 years old. So then I came to Canada in '73. I studied engineering. So actually, if you look, I have a Wikipedia page that says it's a telecommunication engineer and a Canadian Lebanese artist. So that's what I am. Now I'm retired from engineering, but actively in art, I started in the late '70s. My wife bought me an easel because I was talking to her about art, that I love art, and I started, and people like that. I didn't decide to become an artist because I was a very active engineer in the telecommunication business, but I was doing both in parallel, and it's probably something that I would convey to anybody who wants to paint. So you don't have only to paint. Just be a painter. You can be something else and paint. And if you love what you do and you paint, let's say one painting per month, this is 12 paintings per year. And then build up, because when you paint, it stays. So this is how it started, Linda. And I came to Artexpo in '96, but I was already doing exhibition in Canada. But here where I launched my career. So I stop here, and we'll take up question after.
So each of you have sort of started to answer this question, but when did you realize that you wanted to pursue art as a career? That you realized that I could do this, and it could be a career. It could be a viable career. Christina?
Well, I really had to fight for getting to an art school. My parents were missionaries, and they did not want me to be an artist at all. So I just knew I wanted to be an artist, and that's it. And I'm going to do everything that I have to do. I had to promise them to read my Bible every day if I go to art school and not take drugs and all that. I did it all, and I was able to go to an art school. And I really had to fight to be an artist. And maybe that's why I'm still one, because I really had to fight for it. Yes.
Moshe, how about you?
I'm a self-taught artist. So for me, it's been kind of a growing love affair with art. And slowly, as I started to paint and really loving the experience of painting, I started to think, well, this is really what I want to do. So it's been an evolving process that now is very, very clear.
So, Samir, you were an engineer, but what made the shift for you to realize that art could be a career? Not the parallel piece, but It could be just that.
It wasn't a shift, Linda. It was just, I mean, I was doing both equally intensely. So,
But
I-
what made
I-
you put the engineering aside?
Well, the engineering was going along with art, and
Oh.
things happen in life. So I got a born son who is different. So that sparked a lot in my heart. And I would say this was an ignition moment for me. And but the question is, if you want to be an artist, I wanted to be different. I wanted to create my own school, my own style, and I loved Vincent van Gogh from the beginning. I was, I mean, the impressionist, and it's not the story of Vincent that I loved. It's just the ingenuity of what he did. And Monet, Pissarro, I'm very influenced by Pissarro, and I started building on. And I said, well, I mean, if I want to do artists, I have to have my own thing, influenced. Like anybody of those artists has been influenced by other artists, right? And I came out about a style for me, and people loved that. And the more they love it, they buy it, the more you want painting. You see, and this is how it comes. It's not really something, I didn't really decide to be an artist. I would say I love doing art, and the public gave me the chance to be an artist because they
decided
love what
for
I
you,
do,
yes.
and they start buying it. And the more they buy, the more I paint. You see, and how
Okay,
it
so
goes.
here's I love this question. I like to ask this. And so Samir, answer this first. Do you remember the first piece of art that you sold, and why do you remember it?
I think I do. I don't know which one was the first, but it's a friend of the family who bought a piece that it was a river in it. There was some cow. I don't paint cow anymore, but she loved it. It was a piece 30 by 36. She still have it, and she said, I mean, she bought other things, but it was a friend of my wife, right? And the other person, he bought a scene from Saint Denis Street by night that I did, you see. Remember, I was influenced by Vincent van Gogh in the time. So it was a scene by night with this yellow color and the blue, and he loved it. They still have it. So I think these are the two pieces that, which one is first, I cannot tell you, but this is back in the beginning of the, like, late 70s. And then when they bought that, I mean, it's important when somebody, a stranger kind, it's not like your cousin who buy a piece or you give. I mean, of course, I gave pieces at the beginning to the family. Like, this is normal. I mean, you paint and they like it. Okay, so you can hang it. But at one moment, you stop doing that. So, and then a stranger come and buy a piece of art of you. That is the sparkling. That is the spark. When somebody that you don't know buy a piece, this is because he's putting his money to acquire a piece of art that you did, and it means a lot for the artist. And this is how it goes. And I don't know if I can continue a little bit my question. So for me, it was very important that galleries promote my art because I believe that this is where the artist should anchor their career with a gallery or few galleries. They like what they do and they promote. I mean, it's very difficult for artists to find that, but if they are lucky enough to find this gallery or these few galleries, and that would be a big push to their career. So
I think it gives a platform. Then yes.
it gives the platform, and it's a recognition by the by the art dealer that your art is really something that we want to promote. And we can talk about the prices later if you want to talk about prices, but this is how actually build the code of the artist. I mean, you don't paint a painting and say, I want to sell this for $100,000. I mean, you have to have somebody to buy it for one. So you start, and then you raise, and so on, and people buy, and you raise the prices in a way that it's clever. It's a strategy of marketing the thing, and you have to show your work. You have to show, you have to go out. If you stay in your studio, I mean, You can do wonderful art, but it stays in the studio. So probably after your death, they will discover that. What Van Gogh's story is, Van Gogh didn't make big exhibition, probably one, but all his paintings were kind of under the bed. Have you heard that? And in a stock room that his brother actually rented on the street where he used to live. And they promoted his work after his death. But I'm lucky enough that I can promote my work. You too, and you, Maggie, right?
So Christina, do you remember the first piece that you sold, and what's that story? Why do you remember it?
I really remember it very clearly. I was in art school and I had a very strict teacher. And she made me work like mad, and I was willing to do that. I worked day and night. And after 1 year, she came to me and said, listen, you've worked a lot. I've seen that you've done progress. I know that you've done many artworks now, and now the next step is do your exhibition, your first exhibition. So I looked at her and said, no way. I am 17 years old, I'm a student, and I'm not going to do an exhibition. So she then said, well, if you don't want to expose yourself in front of people and get over your shame that you have, you can stop being an artist right away. I looked at her and I knew she was my teacher. I had to do what she was telling me. So I did work hard for that exhibition when I was 17, and the media was really keen on it because they hadn't heard a young lady doing an exhibition with 17. So my first picture I sold there was the very first oil painting that I had ever painted, and I felt so ashamed of myself. Why does someone want to pay for something that I've done once? And the guy said, well, I believe in you, and I'm going to be one of I want to get more of your pictures, and I believe in you, and that's how it was. So he's still buying my art. And from then on, I was very successful with selling. I sold, I think, 39 pictures from 40, which really gave me the courage to continue to be an artist.
It's a great story. I love that story. And how about you, Majid? Do you remember?
Actually, I'm thinking, and I can't exactly remember the first painting that I sold. I mean, what was my experience of it? But I think each time I sell a painting, something really opens up. I mean, I just feel great. So being the first one or being the one I sold yesterday, the experience is the same. It's excitement.
Well, and it's certainly it's validating, and I think that you're right, Christina. I hear this story over and over again. It's validating, but it gives you the encouragement to continue and to explore your creativity on different levels. So, thinking about that, art historians, curators in museums, art writers, they will take a look at an artist's career, and they will classify them. And the masters of Van Gogh and Picasso, they'll talk about their blue period, or Picasso, they'll talk about his sculpture period versus his painting period. And there were times when he was not painting at all and only doing his sculpture, and that was very revolutionary even at the time, because he was really using mixed media to create these sculptures. So it's like that. It's almost an evolution of creativity. You could think of it that way, depending on the artist, or it's an exploration of their creativity. But the bottom line question, I guess, is: has your art changed over time? In the course of the time between then and now, how has your artwork changed, Majid?
Yeah, I've always considered myself an abstract painter, and I continue to do abstract work. However, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've shifted to this new series called Recreate, where there's still a lot of abstract element in it, but I've included the viewer in the work in the way that the viewer can change the art and transform it, and the viewer is the one that becomes part of the creative process. So my Recreate series is what I'm mostly focusing on, and I find it fun and playful and tap in people's creativity, and that is what brings me joy and satisfaction.
And Samir, how about you? Has your artwork changed over time?
Well, of course. I mean, it has to. You see, you start. You have some experience at your young career, and then you grow. And the more you paint, the more you get other experience. And what collectors tell me, the colors are brighter now. The touches are looser. It's more automatic, and all these kind of things. But it's always kind of a Simone. I mean, they will see a painting like 25 years ago, and they will recognize it's my painting. And painting today, they will recognize the touches. And it's a play. I'm always playing with this. I mean, it's experience, right? And like every second year, I introduce something new in Artexpo. All the young collectors, they are a need for like modern art, right? But I'm not. I wouldn't consider like I'm an abstract artist, right? But I'm trying to do something to complement the collection that I have with new scene that is on they call it edgy work, if you want. So it has to be a fun experience. It's not like you should not be crisp in one kind of imagery, and you do this. I mean, take any of these artists, you know that from the beginning to the end, it changed. I mean, at the end of their career, take Monet at the end. I mean, of course, see, it's not the same thing from the beginning at the end, and Van Gogh and so on. So.
And Christina, how about you?
I did quite a few changes, but the most important change that I made was that I always reflected what was going on inside of me, and then try to express what I was thinking and feeling. And from this inside, I changed it into the outside. What is going on in this world? What are we doing with our world? What are we ruining? What are we changing, and what am I going to change? And where is the difference I want to do in this world? And I have changed the art from the inside into how can I make a difference with my art to the outside, and how can I visualize these things. I can give a short example. I used to work as an school director, and I had a student coming up into my office. He was taking drugs and he was in trouble. And I asked him, "What the hell is going on in your head?" And he looked at me, quite surprised, and said, "It's turning in the wrong direction." And I had the sculpture right there, the kid with the wheels in his head. And I said, well, we're going to have to stop those wheels from turning. Stop them and turn them into the other direction. And that's what I realized, more psychological backgrounds that I have in my art.
Well, and I think that brings me to another observation. All of you, just from walking from the front door back here to get to these chairs, you've seen this incredible display of creativity, an interpretation using all kinds of materials. When we think of an artist today, we don't even sculpture. One of my favorite things, but it's not all bronze sculpture anymore. It's glass, it's found materials, it's wire, it's not all sitting on a pedestal. There's a beautiful artist here, Louise Cutler, and she does bronze sculptures, but they hang on the wall. So it's an interpretation of materials, it's the use of color, all of those things coming together. And the other thing that I see, that we all see so much of today, is a reflection of the society, the culture. And I think that artists, and it really doesn't matter whether they are painters or sculptors or musicians or writers, they are a reflection of our culture. They are almost a barometer, if you will, of our culture. And you can go back and see that. You can see Andy Warhol, a reflection of the culture of the time. You can go back to the 60s and see some of the images, the fine art photography that came out of that time. And even the technology that was available. Go a little bit further back. Ansel Adams, what was the technology that was available to him versus right over here behind me in Photo Solo, what do those artists have at their fingertips to use today? And so the question, I think, is, do you feel that? Do you feel that cultural impact on your art? Is it just a trend, or do you see the situations, the things that are important in the world today influencing you as you create your pieces? Samir?
When I paint, I just want to express myself, you see, and it's not really, I don't think about what culture is influencing me. I'm a landscape painter, I do cityscape, and what I want to convey is the beauty of what I see, right? And of course, when I paint landscape, the nature has been like this for a long time. It's always wild feel that I do, right? When I paint architecture, so that will reflect probably what is the type of architecture today, right? Like there is a painting in my booth about the ground zero. But I wouldn't say that I would force myself to reflect the culture of today, except for one piece that I did, which is a bronze. It's an olive tree, and I'm a painter, but I do bronze too. And that bronze tree, and I did it in the intention of doing of it sculptures and public places, because it's a fountain for peace. That's what I call it. So to answer your question, probably this is the only element that I kind of am influenced. There's a lot of wars today, and I wanted to convey a message of peace for the new generation, so I did this bronze. I did other bronze too, but that one day I will see it in public places, conveying a message of peace, because there is too much war going on. So it's a fountain.
Here's what I think, and we can have more of this conversation later. I think that your work is influenced by the culture, because your work gives us all a break from the culture. We're looking at a beautiful landscape. We're looking at that peaceful, tranquil, and imagining that break from everything that's happening around us. So there you go.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much.
Christina, how about you? Of course, I know your work, so I know what the answer is going to be.
Well, I'm the total opposite of you, and then sometimes I wish it would stop turning in my head and I would have that peacefulness. But I am so interested in different cultures, growing up in different cultures, and with different religious, different people thinking different, having other opinions. Most thing that really touches me at the moment is, how do we focus, how do we handle our future, and what are we doing? And I've been working with children for so many years, seeing all those problems they're going through, and I'm really looking for answers that I can visualize. And I think I always will, because I can't do anything else, just like you do. Your peaceful, quiet landscapes, I have to search for answers that aren't that I don't have at the moment for our society, and I want to visualize the answers.
And Maji, how about you?
So I think the question is really, where does your inspiration comes from in some ways? And so my inspiration, I think, is twofold. It's my imagination, where when I create a new interactive piece, I have to imagine the shapes, how they can combine, what the viewer can do with it. So my imagination is my first inspiration, but also life experiences, and also pieces that may be more social and political. For example, recently, last year, I was in Sri Lanka, and we ended up kind of being in a really fancy hotel, and that was surrounded by very, very poor people, favelas, bidonville, we call it in French. And I was, it was such an experience of contrast, and I thought, I really want to make a piece on that, like this huge social inequality that we face and that keeps growing. So I did this piece, this interactive piece called The Growing Gap. And what The Growing Gap is, I researched some of the major stats on how inequality have kept growing in the last 30 years. Like, for example, you probably know that, but about 7 men own currently about half of the wealth of the entire global population, which is 3.6 billion people, have as much as 7 men. And that has been growing, and it keeps growing. So I did this piece that has the stat in the back, and the movable pieces is the symbol of justice, a balance, which you can move around and respond in some way, have an emotional response to the stats that are in the back of the piece. You can also create a no with the pieces of the symbol of balance, etc. So other pieces I have created recently, I lost my mom, so I did a piece on impermanence. I'm a Buddhist, and on using quotes from different spiritual teachers, and in copper and brass created this Buddha piece that is impermanent, that can be changed, that can be moved around into different shapes.
So you can see the diversity, and yet you can see that there are common threads in terms of approaches to creativity. And so now the next thing that I'd like to explore is, what are your current strategies, and what are your goals for the future in terms of your art and your business? Maji?
So I guess it's a big question, 2 or 3 folds to it. I would like to get some of those interactive recreate into the corporate world. I'm thinking of companies like Google, because they create play areas for their employees, and so where people can come and relax and tap into their own creativity. That's one thing. I live in Canada, so I'm looking at getting into some public galleries in Canada. There's a whole piece of the non-profit world that is attached to art, and they support projects like this. I would love to get into public places, and also actually to get a good gallery to represent my work.
Okay, so if there's any gallery directors, gallery owners out there in the audience, you heard it here. How about you, Christina?
Well, something really funny happened 2 years ago. My son called me at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh my God, he's in the hospital or something happened. And he said, look, Mom, I can't sleep, and I know you're awake early, and you must change something in your life. Just focus on art only. Stop your part-time job as a school director and focus on what you want to say. And we talked for a whole hour until we both had to go to work. And it felt weird to, for so many years, tell my son what to do. And then someday he comes and says, look, Mom, you really have to focus on your art now. So ever since, that was my new strategy. But I also got a manager that is doing the whole process in the background. And I'm so thankful for her because I don't have to do any bookkeeping. I don't have to run after the galleries. I don't do anything but art. And it's a real blessing. And I wished I would have done it earlier. I would have jumped into the cold water earlier. Yes, so that's my main strategy.
Lucky artist. Lucky artist. Samir, how about you?
Yeah, well, my strategy is to continue creating what I create, evolve the style, with the continuation. I mean, I don't want any break in my style. Like, I want people to recognize that it's Samoon all the time. Of course, any artist would like to see his work in museums. This is a strategy that I'm pursuing. I have some already. Like I did an exhibition at the Gallery of Art at the Museum of Montreal. And the Fine Art Museum of Boston, they invited me 5 times for their fundraising event. And this is something nice, like the city, the government of the New York State invited me to do 18 painting of the discovery of Samuel de Champlain, of Lake Champlain. And the painting are in the museum and the State University Museum in New York. This is a goal, and to see more and more of my art, like this olive tree with peace, this is a big project in my head. So I'd like to see it happen one day in a good place, like a fountain of peace. And who knows in the future, after I die, what will happen? Probably I'll be forgotten, or somebody will be donating this to some museum that will accept. See, it happens as it happens, but you have to push it, kind of. You have to pursue objectives.
Well, I think you have to put those ideas out there and explore how to put those ideas out there. And you know, I also believe you have to be careful what you put out there, because it all revolves, it all comes back. And really building an art career is a process over many years. So I've been asking a lot of questions. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Here's a microphone for you, sir.
I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to ask the question. I believe art is really about honesty. And I just wonder, when you look at your talents, do your talents limit you, or do your talents make it limitless? In other words, do you look at a painting and say, gee, I wish I could do that? Or does someone else's painting inspire you to try to do that? And do you feel boxed in by your talents, or do you feel like your talents can take you wherever they might take you?
So, no, I believe the talent is the tool to make you better and better. And when you are an artist, the talent is part of the equation, right? A big part of the equation is the love that you put into what you do, and the work that you put. I mean, you have to have some talent. You have to have the talent to do that. And the talent is something that is, it can actually, you can model, you see, as you go. I mean, it's just because you have, like, my talent of what I consider is how to play with the color and how to deposit my colors on the canvas, the style that. Once I have this experience that I do it very easily, so I can actually play with the thing. So that permit me to create all kind of subject, you see. So I don't know about you.
I definitely think that talent plays a role, but I think that pushing your own envelope as an artist, really asking yourself, going deep inside and saying, what is it that I really want to say? What's really important for me? What do I want to put out there, and how can I put it out the best I can? Is, as far as I'm concerned, what makes me grow as an artist.
I would say a talent is the one side, but the practice is the other side. We will never be a good artist if you don't practice. And look at every single piece, and still I do that after 32 years. I'm just practicing, that's all I'm doing. And I hope I can get a little bit better and deeper. But I have to, like you say, absolutely love what I'm doing and be taken in by the theme that I'm doing right now, and do it with heart and soul and everything I am, and focus totally on it. And that is what really gets me to use the talent. It's totally useless if I lie in bed and get up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go to bed again at 6 o'clock. I work hard for the talent I have, but it's a hard thing and not just a working process.
I wanted to say, to add what you're saying is, when I don't do painting for, let's say, 1 week or 2 or 3, so I say I have to paint because actually I miss it a lot. So it's actually built in me energy, and the energy build up until the moment. So I do my palette. And the way I paint, I don't know about my friends, but the way I paint, I build up a palette, takes me a lot of time. And once I've done that, so from this palette, I can actually do probably 10 canvas. But to arrive to the moment, you see, to build up the palette, so it's like energy building thing, and it has to explode. And now you have the talent, you have the experience, so you just express it on the canvas. Now the subject matter is important, but it's not the most, in my art myself, so it can be any subject actually. It's just the colors on the canvas, playing with the colors. So, right?
Well, and I think that being in an environment like this, it has to be energizing, right? It's not going to change necessarily what you're doing, although you might see a technique. Maji might see somebody else who uses magnets, perhaps, or another kind of media that might have a slight influence on Christina, or somebody else's vibrancy and use of color, and it reminds Samir of and energizes him to, as he says, get back to the canvas, get back to the palette. And I think that the stimulation of others, the stimulation of being involved with collectors, is absolutely part of the excitement of being an artist. Maji, what is your booth number?
254.
254. Christina.
106.
And Samir.
233.
Okay, now your mission is to get to each of them and see the full collection. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you, artists, for being with us.
Thank you, Linda.